Welcome to the final installment of Giants Top 100 Players presented by Bud Light. I'm Bob Papa, joined by Bob Glauber, longtime writer and one of the voters in the Top 100 for the New York Giants. Bob, we've reached the final 10, and what a fun exercise this has been getting to this point.
So fantastic to think about so many great players, think about so many great eras, and that's the real challenge is, how do you determine which player is the best given an era, and you have to kind of juggle a lot of things. So a really good thinking process, and I think it came out pretty well.
Well, we got two guys here that are inside that top 10, and we'll start with the captain, Hall of Famer Harry Carson. Harry, when you got the news that you had made it to this point of the process, what were some of the thoughts that went through your mind?
For me, it was, just being mentioned in the top 10. I mean, it was like I was blown away because I never really considered myself to be that kind of player to warrant being, in the top 10. Maybe top 100, yeah, maybe, but top 10, that was special. That was really special.
All right, let's go back to draft day, 1976. What's going through your mind I got to go from South Carolina State, and I'm going to be a New York Giant?
To be honest with you, Bob, I really didn't know.
I went to South Carolina State, and that's, I was a down defensive lineman coming out of college. Marty Schottenheimer drafted me and wanted to teach me how to play middle linebacker. And there are people who, when I was drafted, doubted that I could play the position. Being drafted to play a position that I had never played before, the mindset, the attitude that you have to play that position. I was really new to this whole thing, I mean, there are a lot of guys who pulled me aside to share their feelings and what I might be able to do with this organization. And I was able to basically follow the lead of what those guys had to say to get to be in the top 10 of all-time great Giants.
Harry, you were captain of your college team, but what did it mean to be named the captain of the New York Giants, especially as a defensive player?
For one thing, it was special to be a middle linebacker in the biggest market in the country. Then after my third year, to be elected captain by my teammates was something extremely gratifying. I was honored to be named captain, so it was really special to be their leader.
Tell me about that linebacking core, that crunch bunch.
Brad, Brian, Lawrence, and myself, we were the crunch bunch, and we were big, strong, fast, and we were able to get after people. Lawrence was on one side, Brad was on the other side, Brian was next to me, and you just felt like you could just smack people around. When the offense broke the huddle, and you could see the fear in their eyes, I'd never been a part of a group that demanded so much respect than that group, especially those linebackers.
1973, Giants are playing in Yankee Stadium. New York City cancels the lease because they find out that the Giants are moving to Jersey. So they have to go to the Yale Bowl in 73, 74, then they played at Shea Stadium in 75. So you had the Giants, the Jets, the Yankees, and Mets all playing in Shea in 75. Giants Stadium opens in 76. They finally have their home.
Welcome to Giants Stadium. The escalator immediately in front of you will take you to the upper level. Please watch your step and enjoy the game.
Eli, I'll start with you. When you think about Giant Stadium and you think about that sound and coming out of that tunnel, what's the first thing you think of?
I think of the wind. As a quarterback, I think of the wind and trying to, waking up on Sundays, walking through that tunnel, going on the field and saying, figuring out which way the wind was blowing and how it was going to affect my performance on the field. But also you think about the great crowds and the fans, loud in the stadium, pumped up for big moments, supporting us, cheering for our touchdowns. And so just the great support that all Giants fans have given me, given the teams, always had our back, and just that electric feeling in the air on a Sunday afternoon, getting to play in that stadium was a real treat.
Harry, it wasn't until the end of October in 76 against the Cowboys where the stadium was finally christened. Obviously, you guys were not a winning team in those first few years.
Far from it.
Far from it. But when you think about now, 81, you beat the Eagles on the road in the playoffs, which was stunning to us as Giants fans, having not been to the playoffs since 1963. It was something you thought only other franchises experienced. Then 84, you back it up. Then that 14-2 season in 86, ending with a Super Bowl. When you think about that stadium and those days and those moments, those games against Washington and especially the 49ers, those are the biggest rivalries. And the Cowboys, even though they were starting to go this way. Do you still feel it? Do you still feel that excitement when you go back in your mind's eye and think about that building?
No, they're going to throw the ball. They're going to get a touchdown if he holds it. Touchdown! Harry Carson!
I went to a school that probably had 10,000 people at homecoming. So when Giant Stadium was opened, and I remember standing in the tunnel, getting ready to run out on the field, and seeing like 72,000 fans yelling for the Giants. I mean, it was an altogether different experience for me. You know, Giant Stadium for me was a special place to play, especially in December when it was really, really cold.
We'll take the win.
We would stand in the tunnel getting ready to run out with no T-shirts on or no thermals on, and you know, we would kind of bow up like, this is our place and this is what we play for.
Rolls of toilet paper. Pieces of cutout program. 37 seconds to go, and the Giants will be checking their reservation for Pasadena.
And there it comes. The Gatorade bath, originated by Harry Carson. Where did it come from?
Well, it really wasn't my idea. I always give credit to Jim Burt because Parcells had been riding him all week when we were about to play the Washington Redskins. And so as time was winding down, we were so jubilant with the fact that we were beating them at home. We came up behind him with the bucket and we drenched him. Once I got him, that sort of set things in motion because Bill was very superstitious. If you do something one week and if it works, you have to keep doing it. So as we were winning, I had to keep drenching him with Gatorade. We had fun doing it with him, and it just really became a symbol of the '86 season.
Super Bowl 21, how did you wind up as the lone captain for the coin toss?
You know, quite frankly, I didn't know that I was going to be the lone captain. I was on the sideline talking with Parcells, and the official was standing there, and he said, "We have to go." And so Parcells said, "Go." And I said, "Well, what about Joy?" "Go." "What about Phil?" "Go." And so I started walking out on the field by myself. And I really didn't think about it. And then halfway out on the field, I thought to myself, God, you know, Denver Broncos were walking toward me, and it was like 5, 6, 7 of those guys.
And the Giant captain, Harry Carson.
I just felt honored to be representing all the guys on the team, but the mere fact that Parcells trusted me was something extremely gratifying.
Eli, how about for you? I mean, because, you know, you've played the most recently of everybody. What were your thoughts when you heard about this?
Yeah, just a great honor just to be in that list of the great names for this, you know, storied franchise, and how many championships and great teams and Hall of Famers, and, you know, Harry Carson won sitting right across from me. But to be in that list is a great honor, and it was just thrilled to also, yeah, a little like Harry, a little shocked that you know, I think I can name 10 players that are better than me, maybe more deserving of this than me as well.
When you think about Giant Stadium and you think about that sound and coming out of that tunnel, what's the first thing you think of?
I think of the wind. As a quarterback, I think of the wind and trying to, you know, waking up on Sundays, walking through that tunnel, going on the field and saying, you know, figuring out which way the wind was blowing and how it was going to affect my performance on the field. But also you think about the great crowds and the fans, loud in the stadium, pumped up for big moments, supporting us, cheering for our touchdowns. And so just the great support that all Giants fans have given me, given the teams, always had our back, and just that electric feeling in the air on a Sunday afternoon, getting to play in that stadium was a real treat.
first choice in the 2004 NFL Draft is Eli Manning.
You're the #1 overall pick. You don't get the starting job as a rookie. How did you reconcile that in your mind?
Obviously, I wanted to get the starting job, but I didn't get down. I thought it was important for me to get some playing time that first year.
He's going to get a big hand right now. There he is. Eli Manning jogging out of the tunnel. Number 10 to a huge ovation here at Giant Stadium.
All right, come on, we got to win. Win on 3, baby. 1, 2, 3.
When you finally did get a chance to start, you played some of the best defenses in the league week after week after week.
Yeah, the first game was versus Atlanta. I threw my first touchdown to Jeremy Shockey.
Throws it over the middle. Touchdown, Shockey. Let the record show Eli Manning's first touchdown pass goes to Jeremy Shockey.
Had some decent games, had some struggles. We only won one game, the last game of the season versus the Cowboys.
Now Manning will throw. Stops, throws one left down the sideline. Touchdown, Tyree.
That was big for me and my confidence. I think the players and their confidence around me, and it kind of end the season, a bad season on a good note.
After that first year of struggle, now the stakes kind of get ramped up. What did you learn from that second season?
That second season, we had a good season. We won the NFC East. Went 11-5. It was a big year, and we were one of the top scoring teams in the league that year. And all of a sudden, you get to the playoffs, you play Carolina, and you get shut out.
With that 06 playoff loss, there's questions as to whether Coach Coughlin's going to come back.
Coach Coughlin was under the fire a little bit. I was under the fire. Going into my 4th year, we needed to have a big year. We didn't get the start we wanted, starting 0-2, but we turned it around quick and started playing great football. Going to Washington that third game, we're down at halftime, but the second half we get some big plays.
Manning takes the snap, blitzes on, he throws it left, he's got burst, makes his man miss, cuts right to the 20, to the 15.
Plaxico catches a little slant for a touchdown. We take the lead.
To the 10, to the 5, touchdown, Plaxico Burris! The Giants have come back from a 17-3 halftime deficit, and they now have a 24-17 lead.
And then, all of a sudden, Washington starts driving. Our defense gets a huge goal line stand.
4th and goal at the 1. Redskins need a touchdown to tie. Takes the snap, handoff left for Beck, and he's tripped up and stopped short. Giants stopped him on 4th and goal, and they're going to win the ball game. The Giants may have saved their season.
That was huge. That was huge just for the morale of the team, and just knowing that, and we kind of hung in there and we fought back and we found a way to win that football game, and that was really kind of the theme for the rest of the year.
Welcome to Lambeau Field in Green Bay for the NFC Championship game. Second coldest game ever at Lambeau Field, -1 degree with a wind chill of -23.
Now you're in the NFC Championship game. You got to go against Favre in Green Bay, Lambeau Field.
That was just, kind of my favorite game. Just in Lambeau Field. It's -23 degrees. NFC Championship, playing against, Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. I mean, this is it.
But you're dealing. I mean, you're throwing the ball. Were you throwing it like it was 70, and Plaxico's in a hand-to-hand combat with Woodson and Harris? And
Plaxico was feeling it, and really we ran the same route like 9 times. I think Plaxico had 11 catches or so that game. I think 8 or 9 of them were the same. It was the same call. There's just different conversions to it. He ran a hitch. One time he went inside. I threw it. It kind of looked like a slant. But one time he goes outside and I back shoulder it. Another same play. I hit Amani down the sideline where he makes a great catch. And he drags the feet. And also the way we win it, we miss 2 field goals. And then here comes Tynes for that third one on the 47-yarder.
All right, here goes Tynes again from 47 yards. Snap is good. Kick on its way. End over end. Does it have the distance? It is good! Lawrence Tynes has kicked the Giants to the Super Bowl.
Hey, I got icicles in my nose. Hey, there you go. Thank you, brother. Let's get it. Thank you, man. Let's go get it. We ain't finished. Thank you, man. I love you. Thank you.
You're going to the Super Bowl, and not a sweeter feeling in the world.
The New York Football Giants and the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42.
As a team, you guys were pretty confident going into that Super Bowl, weren't you?
We felt good going into that game, and we went out there and did our job and played well and didn't make mistakes, and we could win this game.
Manning to throw to the end zone, touchdown! David Tyree on the post, and the Giants have the lead with 11:05 to go in the ball game.
So now you guys jump back in front. For the first time all game, the Patriots really looked like the Patriots. They went down the field. Randy Moss beats Webster, touchdown. So now it's on to you.
There's a great clip of Michael Strahan walking down the sideline saying, hey, the final score is going to be 17-14.
17-14 is the final, okay? 17-14, fellas. 1 touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
I was was a little upset as like the quarterback. I kind of wanted to give the big pep talk to the offense and get it going. I guess Michael, 15th year, got to do it. But I was kind of like, Michael, like, you just let them score. If you just would have stopped them right there, like, we wouldn't have to have this conversation. I think, like, I don't know if you deserve right now to be talking after you just let them score a touchdown to give them the lead back.
So the Giants know what they have to do. They've got to go 83 yards in 2:39. Can Eli Manning do it?
We're down 4, and there's only one option. The score's got to be 17-14. We get to a 3rd and 5. We have a pretty good play on for the coverage. I'm probably going to work maybe the Tyree on the post, and we just get a little rush. Get a little rush going, and they got a hold of me, but they just never pulled me down. They just kind of, I could feel the guy hold me, but they weren't tackling me, so I fought out of it. I rolled right. I kind of saw Tyree, I saw Rodney Harris there, but I just figured, I got to give this a shot. David just, makes an unbelievable catch. That was obviously a huge play for us, but we still had a lot of work to do.
1st and 10 at the 13. 39 seconds to go. Giants down by 4.
The Patriots, their mentality kind of down there in the red zone, they're going to play kind of a quarters coverage, or they're going to do an all-out blitz. Finally, they came out with the all-out blitz. We had Plax go one-on-one, and there was no doubt where I was going. I was throwing it high in the corner end zone and let him make a play.
Touchdown Giants! And that is it. The New York Giants have knocked off the New England Patriots.
You guys win, the confetti comes down. I mean, is it everything that you would ever dreamed?
At first, it's just chaos. You're hugging everybody, and you're around. There was kind of a moment right before I got up on stage to grab the trophy for the first time. I mean, that's kind of when it all kind of sunk in for the first time. We just won the Super Bowl.
Let's go back to the 2011 season, and obviously the whole elite thing.
Is Eli Manning an elite quarterback? Are you a top 5, top 10 quarterback?
Yeah, I think I am.
Are you in the Tom Brady class?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself in that class.
It was such a direct question. It was like, do you consider yourself an elite quarterback, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? And I think any athlete, you always do. You think like, hey, I can win every game. I can make every throw. I've won a championship already. We can win. I know we can win championships.
Was the San Francisco NFC Championship game one of the most physical games you've ever played in?
Yeah, it's got to be up there, and their defense is as good as they get. So another game where it's say, hey, you got to be patient. Can't force things. Don't give their offense a short field to work with. Make them drive 80, 90 yards and earn all the points that they get. And if we had to take some sacks, so be it. Let's just, let's stay in the game and let's give us a shot at the end to win this. Hit Manningham on a touchdown late in the 4th quarter. That was big.
Zips one to the left to the end zone. Touchdown Giants! Mario Manningham! And the Giants are back in front with 8:34 to go.
A couple special teams turnovers in our favor really helped us get some field position.
Lost the ball, and the Giants say they have it, and they do! Knocked out by Jaquan Williams and recovered by the Giants.
And then, Tynes kicking the game-winning field goal.
Snap is low. Kick on its way. It's got the distance, and it is good! And Lawrence Tynes has done it again. He's kicked the Giants to the 2nd Super Bowl in 4 years. New York Giants football is on the air. It's the New York Football Giants and the New England Patriots, Super Bowl 46.
In this Super Bowl, I mean, a lot of people picked you guys to win, and you really outplayed them in the first half.
We had this all-in mentality for the last 6-7 weeks, and I didn't want that to end. We had to keep that all-in mentality going. Like, we could not afford to relax.
Manning back to throw. Throws one left. Touchdown Giants. Victor Cruz on the slant.
Sure enough, got the game to the 4th quarter and the final drive, and very comfortable in that situation. We'd been in that situation many times that season.
Manning out of the shotgun set, and he's back to throw. Climbs the pocket, deep ball down the left sideline, and it's going to be caught. Was he inbounds? Yes! Manningham on the sideline.
That's a heck of a throw and a heck of a catch by Mario Manningham.
I was looking to my right, and they had, kind of doubling Akeem and Victor and had them blanketed. So it was really kind of like, I'm going to look to Mario. He was running. He was full speed. Patrick Chung kind of had cheated him, I think, with my eyes looking right, and saw, a little window and let her fly. And we get close, and they're going to let us score, right? They let us score.
Handoff Bradshaw. He runs up the middle, and he falls into the end zone for the touchdown. He thought about stopping.
Probably did give the Patriots the ball back with a little bit more time than we wanted to.
Brady's back. Brady's under pressure. Brady's chased. Brady heaves one down the middle of the field into the end zone. A jump ball.
I kind of see the ball, get hit, and then I lose it. And then finally, a second later, I kind of see it dribbling on the ground.
Incomplete, and the ball game's over, and the Giants have won Super Bowl 46.
Second Super Bowl, they're always different. First is always the first. Second is special too. But what does the second one mean to you as far as personally and organizationally?
The first time it was all kind of brand new. It kind of came out of nowhere. The second one, you end up thinking about the other guys who were getting their first Super Bowl, and it's an exciting time for myself. But then you think about those guys who are going through it for the first time. What that feeling is, and smiling for them.
In the Giants stadium and in the Giants facility, there's a lot of history around. And obviously, you've played more games than anybody in the history of the Giants, so you spent the most time in the building of anybody. But what was it like to be able to interact with and be around former players that tend to be around a lot, whereas other franchises don't necessarily have that?
Yeah, it's just it's a really special, and I think it goes back to well into Mero, once a Giant, always a Giant. And that's not something he just said. That's something he truly meant, he believed in, and that culture still stands today. And so great players always around the facility. They come back. I appreciate the organization, the ownership. It's a family. And once you come in here, same guys that were in the equipment room, the film room, the training room when I got here as a rookie, 20 years later, they're still there. And there's people in the front office. So it is a family, and you always feel welcome. You're always invited back, and come have lunch, come watch practice, come hang with the players and interact. And it's unbelievable to have that access. Wellington Mara always said, once a Giant, always a Giant. For me, it's only a Giant.
Bob?
Listen, these two players here are as deserving as there are. This was not I don't think it was difficult to put Harry Carson and Eli Manning in the top 10 in the history of the franchise. Now, it's 100 years, so that does incorporate a lot of players, and it incorporates a lot of eras, and there are some amazing players along the way, but, they've earned it. And, they played in different eras, different rules, different athletes. They're better athletes than they were in the 20s and 30s. It's just, that's how sports goes, right? When it develops like that. So, I mean, these are two of the most deserving guys to be in this spot.
Harry, I want to ask you about number 8 on this list. Sam Huff came to the Giants in 1956. They win the NFL championship that first year in Yankee Stadium. You played similar position, that inside linebacker position, and you had a chance to be around him, even though he was retired as a player, but he always wore his Giant proudly. What were some of the things that you learned from him in your experiences with him?
He was a tough guy. He was a tough guy playing during a tough era.
What do you do that for, 88? You do that one more time, 88, I'm going to sock you one. Now, don't do that. You run again, you get a broken nose. Don't do that. Hit me on the chin with your elbow.
Playing against, the players who were playing during that era, he stood out. And one of the things that I thought about when I was coming into, playing for the Giants was I wanted to be mentioned in the same breath as Sam Huff.
Huff intercepts Plum on a spectacular catch.
Even before, I was drafted to play with the Giants, I recognized that name, Sam Huff, and at some point I reached out to get some advice from, Sam about playing the position. He was gracious enough to give me time, and I really appreciated it. And subsequently, when I got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I was able to see Sam on a regular basis, and we had our share of conversations talking about playing the game.
Sam Huff's first year, he was ready to leave. He actually left the team. He wanted to just quit. Jim Lehal was too tough on him. They didn't have the right position for him. He was a down lineman. They were looking at him there, and he left. He literally left for the airport one day, and Vince Lombardi was dispatched to go get him. And Lombardi sees him at the airport, and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm leaving. They're yelling at me. I've never had this before. I can't take it." Lombardi says, "No, you have to come back. You have to come back. You have to continue playing. You're too good. Stop." So Lombardi goes back. He tells Jim Lehal, "No more yelling. Find a spot for him. Figure it out." And Tom Landry then puts him in the flex defense as that 4-3 middle linebacker. And then the rest is history. But he was ready to be done. And he kind of laughed about it as his career went on. But imagine what might not have happened had that changed.
You know, those middle linebackers tend to be very fragile. Very sensitive.
That's the thing, right? Why?
They don't want to be yelled at.
Yeah, I know. And then Vince Lombardi then coming back and telling the coach, "Don't yell."
Don't yell. Right? Don't yell.
Vince is the last guy you'd expect to be able to say that. So it all worked out.
Eli, number 4 on this list is Frank Gifford, who he was drafted by the Giants in 1952. He won the MVP in 1956 and was a multifaceted player, running, receiving, played multiple positions. You know, all of us grew up watching him on Monday Night Football.
As Frank Gifford, halfback, I spent 12 wonderful years with the New York Giants, many of those years winding up in championship games. Now, as Frank Gifford, sportscaster, I play an entirely different position.
What are your thoughts when you think about Frank Gifford, other than the yellow blazer on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I think just like you said, just the amount that he was able to do. He ran, he caught, he threw touchdowns. I mean, he was kind of that position that it doesn't really exist anymore in football, like the running back. Like you don't see running backs throwing it, catching. He was, just a playmaker. And just, you kind of, I remember him, like you said, from announcing, and I didn't get to see him play live, but I got to hear his voice and associate it with watching football growing up. And so just got to meet him, several times. Always the big smile, just the big personality. Always a delight to be around. And just when you think of the New York Giants, he's one of the names that pops up just because of just that time and what a great character and a great player that he was.
Yeah, and you think about it, I mean, Mrs. Mara, that was her favorite, right, with the Mara family. Frank Gifford was royalty, right?
I think so. I think I was just talking with Ernie Accorsi, and he just mentioned that I think it was Wellington Mara's favorite also. And you can see why, just the ultimate pro, and did everything they asked, and just a wonderful person as well. So he was kind of Mr. New York. I know during that time, it would have been a fun time to hang with him during that.
When he was at any Giants event, there's royalty, and then there was that next level. And Frank carried himself in that way, but was very approachable to people.
Very down-to-earth guy. He had a magnetism about himself that you can't replicate it. It's not fake, and it's all real. And he's Frank Gifford's in the room. So, man, can I talk to him? And he was a very humble man. And you think about the NFL now, everything is geared toward offense. All the rules, more offense, more. And Frank Gifford continues to hold the record for most touchdowns by a New York Giant. It's remarkable, and he played so long ago. And Eli touched on it, the running, the throwing, and the catching. He was just the all-around player. Gifford was it. He had the whole package, and he succeeded. The golden boy from Southern Cal, and he hits the big stage in New York, and he wins a championship, and he does these Hall of Fame things over the length of his career.
Speaking of Frank Gifford, he's number 4. Number 5 is the modern-day Frank Gifford, which is your teammate Michael Strahan. He has gone from being not only a Hall of Fame football player, but to someone who excelled on TV doing football, who has now excelled like Frank Gifford did, crossing over to become a true star across America. Did you think that he would take it that route?
I'm not surprised that it went that route, just with Michael's personality and him in the locker room. He was a guy, his voice was always carrying through the locker room. When he was telling a story or he was animated about something, everybody heard what he was saying.
This is what I was built for. I was built to play football. That's what my mentality be physical, it's going to be tough, you're going to be tired. Champions and winners believe they will win the game. We are the New York Giants, and we ain't no punk. Mama ain't raised no punk. Crawford ain't raised no punk. What do? We stop.
Not surprised also just with his work ethic, and that's was so important for me to see, and why he was such a great mentor, role model for me coming to the New York Giants. This is a guy who brought it every single day, every single practice. He was going full speed, in the weight room, working extremely hard, always there, always a great attitude, and always encouraging me. Just appreciate him so much for always having my back and kind of setting the example for how you have to work, how you have to prepare, how you have to play for the New York Giants and in the NFL. And he's a great friend of mine, and get to watch him now on TV doing all the fun things, and no one's working harder than Michael, and deserves all the success that he's having.
Dan Reeves was the head coach when Michael came, and Mike Nolan, whose dad coached with the Giants, I mean, they moved Michael, and he became, along with Reggie White, the best two-way defensive end in the National Football League, because, as you know, his ability to play the run was as good as anybody.
Yeah. And, that transition happened. He was more or less a traditional guy coming from the right end. And Nolan, I was talking to him about it long after Michael's career ended. He says, yeah, when in his first year, he was having trouble with the steps, right? The steps, he just couldn't get to he just was a little off. His footwork was off. So we put him on the left side. And then all of a sudden, he was like steps, he's in rhythm, and he's great. And so I went to Stray and said, this is what Nolan said. He goes, what? What is he talking about? But it really, that switch was huge.
1st and 10 Eagles, McNabb back to throw. Steps up under pressure, and he's sacked by Michael Strahan. And there's the record, the New York Giants record, 133.5, and he does it with Lawrence Taylor in the house.
The other thing about Strahan, I don't know if you win that 2007 Super Bowl without that kind of leadership, and that defense was great. You had the game of your life in the Super Bowl, but that set up in large part because of the defense holding those Patriots, down.
Takes the snap and back to throw. Sets in the pocket, and he's sacked by Michael Strahan back at the 32-yard line.
And Strahan's leadership, and there was a little question whether he was going to come back that season contract-wise, but he came back, and it was huge. And he had the season of a lifetime, and he was able to do what few others have done, is walk off into the sunset with a Super Bowl.
And we did want to win for Michael just because of what he meant to this organization, 15 years, his leadership, and especially on the defensive side, but the whole team. He gathered everybody together, and he used to walk around the locker room before every game, just shook everybody's hand, had a message for them, had a friendship, had a relationship with every player, and we definitely wanted to win that one for him, get him his championship.
Life is about improbability. And my life is improbable. I am an absolutely improbable Hall of Famer. I was a late bloomer as a football player. I didn't play in high school. I played 1 year in high school. I was a late bloomer. But the improbable happened. I get drafted by the New York freaking Giants. And not only by the Giants, but I get drafted by Wellington Mara, the Duke, Bob Tisch, the Tisch family, and the great George Young. Those are the guys who brought me and trusted me enough to bring me to the Giants. In the spirit of that, their kids, John Mara and Steve Tisch, have continued in that spirit of realizing that the team is a family. Now, I used to go in the locker room before every game, and I would go and tap and touch and hand high five and pep talk every player, equipment guy, coach. The reason I did it was because each time I touch each guy, I'm accountable to you. What I put out there on that field today is not for me, it's for you. You will never be disappointed in me. This is about family. This is about teammates. This is about everybody pitching in to make you better, and for you, hopefully, to make them better. And for what the game of football has done for me, I am eternally grateful to this game. And I'm so glad that I am a representative of the 2014 NFL Hall of Fame.
Tonight, Michael Strahan, it is my great privilege on behalf of the other 287 Hall of Famers to present you with this ring as one of the great players in the history of the game.
You know, you talk about threads, right? He was there with Lawrence's last year, and some of those guys he played with, the Keith Hamiltons of the world, and got to a Super Bowl in 2000. And then you kind of, Harry, you think about some of the threads with you. We talked about Sam Huff, but for instance, at number 10 on the list is Andy Robustelli, who was the president. The Giants didn't have a GM at the time. He was the president of football operations, and he was there when you got drafted. So you had a chance to be around more Giant royalty and those connections from the past to which eventually led to your team. What was it like to be around another great defensive person that was in the building and on the property?
You know, there are certain names that kind of resonate with you that you always remember. Robustelli is one of those names that you always sort of remember, and that was before I even was drafted to play with the Giants. Here's a personality that I used to watch on television, or I would listen to on the radio or whatever, and I'd hear his name. And I always equated his name with the New York Football Giants.
And, you know, Bob, Robustelli as a player was like amazing. You know, I did see him a little bit as a kid, and I'm thinking, you know, big guy, but he was not. You know, he was 6'1", 220, right? 6'1", 220 as the defensive end, but he was very quick. He was very skilled in terms of technique, and he would just dominate people. He had a good outside move, and he got after the quarterback. So he was really one of the great pass rushing defensive ends of his time.
Yeah, that was a lot of Tom Landry as the defensive coach at that time, and kind of using analytics ahead of the time. He was the one that figured out the probabilities and studying the tape on how to stop Jim Brown, which is why they developed that umbrella defense. Robustelli won a title with the Rams in '51, then came to the Giants, and obviously they had that great run of 56, then 58, 60, 61, 62, 63, losing the championship games. But he was, you know, back then the Giants defense was announced. My mom till this day can rattle off the 1956 Giants starting defense name and number. The chant of defense didn't start at Knick games. It started with Giants games, and the Giant defense was introduced to the audience. Oh, that's how big it was. Neither of these guys, none of us had any connection with Mel Hein. So Mel Hein has come in at number 3 on this list. That's when they played 60 minutes. So he played center, he played linebacker, and he went to 8 straight Pro Bowls, you know, the inaugural Hall of Fame class. But one of these players that, over the course of time, I give the voters a lot of credit for not being age biased and realizing what this man meant to the early years of the NFL.
Well, when you think about Mel Hein, and, you know, I had the benefit of having talked to, like, Wellington Mara about Mel Hein. You know, he saw him, and he knew what he was all about, and so you have that connection to history. But you just look at it, like, I believe it was 6 straight All-Pros, first team All-Pro, all those Pro Bowls, playing 2 ways. You know, Mel Hein was the first offensive lineman to be named MVP in the NFL in 1938. And probably, he's the last one. I was like, is this true? Yes, it's true. And he was just so dominant at his position. And, you know, later in his career, he was ready to retire in like the early 40s. And he became a coach at upstate New York, and during the war they had to stop the program. And on weekends he would come down and still play for the Giants. He played 3 more years. Like, you know, living part-time in the area, but he was that good, and they were willing to do whatever to keep him.
I want to ask you now. He stopped coaching as an assistant before you got there, but really one of the greatest stories in the history of the National Football League is Mr. Offense on Defense, Emlen Tunnell, who in this list comes in at number 6. Emlen Tunnell took a bus from Philly to the Giants offices and asked for a tryout. And as original owner Tim Mara said, if he's going to take that much of an effort to bus up and come to our, we should at least give him a tryout. This is one of the most dominant player on the defensive side of the ball. One season, his interception return yardage and his punt return yardage was more yardage than the leading rusher in the NFL.
Drops into the waiting arms of Emlen Tunnell, and he does what the New York fans have been hoping for all afternoon, adding another brilliant run back to his record and a touchdown to the New York side of the scoreboard.
He still holds the Giant record for interceptions.
This guy, and during that time when they didn't throw that much, like he was, it felt like he was, you know, for the amount of throws to interceptions, it's an unbelievable stat.
He has the second highest number of interceptions in NFL history.
It's unbelievable.
Right, 79, and Paul Krause had 81. I think Deion Sanders had 54.
54, right.
So Emlen Tunnell was 25 more than Deion Sanders. He was a great player, very unassuming player, you know, very humble guy, but dominant.
Second most interceptions in the history of the NFL, Giants franchise leader, in an era when they played 12 games.
Yeah, even that. And he was a Coast Guard hero during the war.
There's a ship commission.
There's a ship commissioned in his name, the SS Emlen Tunnell. That's pretty remarkable.
It wasn't until I came to the Giants that I realized that he was the first black player to be signed by the Giants. 1947, something like 48, whatever.
Yeah, and he was the first man of color to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well. Pretty incredible stuff with Emlen Tunnell, isn't it? Let's go to the man who was voted #1. I think let's go to #2 first. Okay. Roosevelt Brown.
Okay.
Because maybe the best left tackle in the history of the sport. Yeah, he was a 27th round pick, you know, the old 27th round.
27.
But an absolute dominant player that, you know, was around during your playing days. You know, you could see him, those tree trunk legs. What were your reminiscing of Roosevelt Brown when you think about him?
You know, he had that voice. If you've been around him, you saw the knees, and his fingers were all mangled and everything, but he was there, and he gave me and all the other players who needed a kick in the rear end or whatever. He gave us advice that stuck with us. To be on any kind of list with Rosie Brown, that really is special for me and should be for everybody else on that list, because he's #2, and it's well deserved that he's #2. And how many offensive linemen would be like '2?
Right.
It would be maybe a quarterback.
I'd vote for him. Maybe. I'd like to have a
quarterback. It'd be a running back or whatever.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
This is a left tackle who went to a small black school, Morgan State.
For our younger fans, now, when we did the great plays and fans could vote on it, there's the one play where he blocks like 3 guys at once as one of the top plays in the history of the Giants. Would you say for the younger people watching right now, to give them a frame of reference, would you maybe have Jonathan Ogden as the current day visual or a modern day visual of what Roosevelt Brown?
Yeah, Ogden was probably a little bit bigger, you know, bulkier, you know, but similar in terms of talent, and he put him out there.
Let's take a guy out of the game.
Done.
Yeah. Take 3 guys out of
you know, what was remarkable, and Harry mentions the HBCU factor, back then, scouting was just very rudimentary. You don't have what it was then. There was a writer in Pittsburgh, Bill Nunn Jr. He was the sports editor of the Pittsburgh Courier, black paper in Pittsburgh, and he had an all-star team that he compiled each year for HBCU players. And Rosie Brown was on there, and the Giants saw it, and you know, took a chance on him in the 27th round, right? But that all-star team was a really important tool that owners used, because it eventually, you know, once reintegration happened in '46, there still were not a lot of black players in the NFL. But that all-star team was important, and the Giants used it, and kind of that's how they learned about them, really, because there was this was not TV and that kind of thing. So just kind of a remarkable way that he got here, but he still had to earn it that first year, and he did. He was plugged in right away as a starting left tackle and never left.
All right, so let's go to #1. I'll start with you, Eli. Lawrence Taylor. I mean, you've seen him around a little bit over the years, but I mean, you're of the age where you had a chance to watch him play on TV. I mean, can you imagine having to go against him?
No, I'm glad I did not have to go against him. I've seen watched them live, watched them play in Super Bowls, and grew up as an NFL fan. I mean, he was the guy. I mean, he was exciting and electric, and I've seen the hits that he's put on some of these quarterbacks, and it hurts me to watch it. Playing with them in video games and Tecmo Bowl, and he was unblockable, and so he was the guy as a kid. Like, if you were playing defense, you wanted to be Lawrence Taylor, and you hear coaches, you hear Coach Belichick talk about him and what a tremendous player, and right when he got here his rookie year, he was the best player, and so just. I'm glad I never got to go against him. I probably would not have been able to play 16 years if I had to face against him twice a year during that stretch. But a part of those great teams with Harry Carson and that defense was a scary defense y'all had, Harry.
Mm-hmm. All right, what were your thoughts when he walked in the door day one as a rookie?
We didn't want him. Yeah. We didn't want him because during that time, the Giants had the second pick in the draft, and we felt, it was Brad Van Pelt, Brian Kelly, and myself. We thought that we needed offensive, fireworks, because we felt like we were solid. I mean, we were already good, and they used that second pick for Lawrence Taylor. First day of practice, we're out on the field, and we're going through drills. I went and I did whatever, I needed to do. I came back, sat on my helmet, and I'm like, Lawrence was next. And I was like, okay, let me see what this guy has. And ball snaps, he runs in, and he puts on some move that I'd never seen before. And he was improvising. I mean, it wasn't anything that he had played. He was improvising. And I thought to myself, when he beat that blocker so thoroughly, I thought to myself, damn, he's good. He had kind of skinny looking legs and everything, but he was good. And he was able to hold his own from that time on. The other thing is, I'm glad that he had coaches who could utilize him in the right manner.
Be more aggressive on that special now. They'll come back with that. That slant counter there. Yeah. Kick it over. I want to show how to play that. Yeah. Kick it. Go, Lauren. Kick it over. Yeah.
Some other team may have drafted him, and he would have been an outside linebacker. But because of Bill Parcells and the way that he wanted his defense to play.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs and have some fun.
They saw what they were capable of doing with a Lawrence Taylor. He was special, he was unique, he had speed. He was our guy, and it was special.
Son, I gotta do better than this.
He was a badass. He was a badass, and everything that people say about him now, it's true. I mean, he was a great player.
He was pretty amazing, too. You pointed this out to me once in the facility. I remember you said, look at everybody pre-snap. He's the only one that's flat-footed, but he gets there first. His timing, his instinct, and then his pure athleticism is unparalleled, isn't it?
He was born to be an outside rusher. The things that he did, you can't draw those things up. It all came from playing the game. And, people look at Lawrence. Lawrence was one of the smartest players I've ever been around. I mean, his intellect, football intellect, was off the charts. We would be in meetings, and Bill Belichick was our defensive coordinator. And we'd be in the meeting room, and he would be at the board trying to, put down a new play or whatever. And Lawrence would be at the front of the room, laying on the floor, halfway asleep, and Lawrence would tell Bill, oh, that's not going to work, Bill. That's not going to work. I can see it from here, even though I'm half asleep. This is not going to work. And, Bill would challenge him, and he would get up on the board, and he would write down what he was doing and why it might not work. So it wasn't, you know, people look at football and they think it's all physical. Football is so much mental. I mean, you have to really have it here to play this game. To be able to do the things that he did on the field, that is the thing that sticks out. He showed up every game, he showed up ready to play.
I don't think I've ever seen a more relentless player, too, than Lawrence. I mean, just always knew the situation, always gave maximum effort. There was a game in New Orleans where he separated his shoulder and was fitted with a harness, continued to play, brought the quarterback down from behind on a huge play. It was just, you don't see things like that in today's game, but he was just a warrior, and his will was, I think, second to none.
Let me remind you, I did not play in that game. He played my position in that game, and he was really good.
Oh,
I was a little jealous. Yeah. I'm like, they don't need me, this guy. and it was such an honor to play with a guy of that magnitude, you know, athletic ability.
He ends over pass. He's looking for King, intercepted. He's going to go down the right side. Lawrence down to the 20, 30, down to the 40. He might go all the way. He's going to go in. Hot dog. You're rooting, Dick. Oh, yes, but listen, what an effort.
And so when I hear people say that he's the GOAT, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that he was a giant, and he loved being a giant, and he would have been at the top of every team's list if they're going through the same thing that the Giants are going through now with the 100th anniversary. It's a piece of cake.
Without you guys, there wouldn't have been a Lawrence Taylor, but there wouldn't have been an LT. Thank you very much.
Two captains, Super Bowl champions. Eli Manning, number 8 on this final list. Harry Carson, Hall of Famer, number 7 on this list. Walter Payton Man of the Year Award winner as well. We want to thank you guys so much for sharing some of these stories with us as we celebrate the top 100 players. Eli, thank you. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you. Real honor.
And Bob, really appreciate you being part of this entire process with the Blue Ribbon panel. The fact that you have the past honored in these top 10 really speaks to the depth of understanding of this panel, and I appreciate all of your efforts and the rest of the group.
Honor to do it. Thank you.
So fans, we continue the celebration of 100 seasons of Giants football. For Bob Glauber, Eli Manning, Harry Carson, I'm Bob Papa. Thanks for joining us for Giants Top 100 Players, presented by Bud Light.